Hello, and welcome to our Preschool Life Skills launch event. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from Hi Rasmus, and I'm so excited you all are all here today. Today, we'll be showcasing our new Preschool Life Skills curriculum on Hi Rasmus, and we're going to have Dr. Anthony Cammilleri from FTF Behavioral Consulting will provide an introduction on the preschool life skills, and then later Dr. Erin Moran will show us the PLS, I apologize, in action on Hi Rasmus. And then after that, we will also have plenty of time for questions. So before I hand it over to our special guest speaker, I want to share a little bit more about Hi Rasmus. Hi Rasmus is an ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early on in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral therapy services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them: behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, clinical directors, and all of you. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. I'd like to now hand it over to Dr. Anthony Cammilleri. And thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share so you can get yours going.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate that. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to work with you and and Hi Rasmus. This is, I think, the third project we've been working on together. We started off with the Balance Project and then moved on to PFA and SBT. And I knew sooner or later someone was going to reach out to me about PLS. Uh, in fact, Rachel, a couple of years ago, I guess it was probably like 2 years ago or so, Rachel attended my PLS presentation at Upstate Caring Partners, and she was making copious notes, and she said, "This has got to get into Hi Rasmus." And sure enough, she predicted accurately, and here we are.
I love it. I'm so glad that we're here today now.
Right on. Hello, my friends, all of you in the audience. I've been sort of monitoring the chat and the names that are flowing in. I know many of you are follow FTF and the procedures that we are working on disseminating that all fall under the umbrella of what we might call a contemporary, compassionate form of ABA that puts our values before our procedures. And I really like what you were saying there, Amy, with the part of the goal of Hi Rasmus is to be able to focus on the person right in front of you. And that dovetails really nicely with the work that we do. We have a similar saying where when we talk about compassion, it's showing concern for the individual, for the patient, every moment that you're with the patient. And so this is yet another tool that I think will help advance compassion in the field of ABA. Okay, so we're going to be talking about preschool life skills, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag early. The curriculum was originally designed out of a preschool for preschool teachers to use with preschoolers. But since then, it's had applications across a wide variety of grade levels, both with kids with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, as well as neurotypical individuals. So the phrase that we like to use these days is that preschool life skills, it's not just for preschool anymore. What we're really talking about is a set of skills, a set of 13 skills that are going to be useful for everybody. In fact, I would argue that everybody needs to have these in their repertoire if they're going to be socially successful. So if you end up having applications of this with older kids, what I would recommend is that you just drop the preschool part of it and you refer to the curriculum as life skills. Or you may want to say something more like universal life skills, just so that you can help preserve the dignity of an older child who still is in need of these skills becoming part of their repertoire. Okay, let's share the screen and talk a little bit about the history, the impetus for the preschool life skills. Why did this come about? Well, it was originally designed at the University of Kansas under the direction of Dr. Greg Hanley. He and his graduate students at the time uh, were working in the preschools, the EduCare preschools on the University of Kansas. And there was this article that came out, this article that I'm showing right here from the National Institute of Health and Human Development. And it caused a bit of a stir. And it became the first source of inspiration for designing the curriculum. So, with around 65% of North American preschool children experiencing some type of childcare based in the community, a community center like Head Start or like EduCare, they were interested in gaining a more detailed bit of information on the short-term and long-term effects of childcare on social development. So they observed approximately 1,000 children from birth to kindergarten and found that the amount of time spent in non-parental childcare was strongly correlated with A, teacher and mother reports of low social competence, B, high interpersonal conflict, and C, externalizing problem behaviors such as aggression and disobedience. In fact, these sets of publications here in 2003, 6, and 11 were noticed by the popular press, and then parents started reading about these findings and they asked what could be done about it. And of course, it caused quite a bit of concern for parents, many of whom needed the child care because they were working. So after some honest reflection, Dr. Hanley and his students, they questioned how they could do things better. And that became the source of one of the first sources of inspiration for the curriculum. Okay, so just to emphasize the point that I'm trying to make here, observed a thousand kids from birth to kindergarten, and those that attended non-familial childcare exhibited lower social competence, higher interpersonal conflict, and externalizing problem behavior, like hitting, property destruction, things like that. So they conducted a study on teachers' judgments of the stressors that they perceived of children transitioning from kindergarten. And this time, 3,500 kindergarten teachers were surveyed concerning the characteristics of children entering their classroom. Okay, so these are kindergarten teachers, and they're talking about what are the characteristics of the students coming into those classrooms. And they found that 30% reported that more than half of the children had problems working in groups. 20% reported that more than half of the children had social deficits, and 14% reported that more than half of the children had communication deficits. The one thing that stood out, if you thought, look at that line up there. What's missing from that lineup? The one thing that stood out among all of the concerns is that there was nothing about academics listed. Nothing about academics. The kindergarten teacher said, "We're fine, we got that. Please deliver us kids with more social competence." That's the point that they were trying to make. Okay. When teachers were asked to identify the pro-social skills that they considered to be most important when preschoolers are transitioning into their classrooms, into their kindergartens, it was not surprising that they identified the abilities to communicate their wants and needs, to be non-disruptive, to follow directions, and to show sensitivity to their peers. Okay, so all of those are social skills that that the kindergarten teachers were saying, if you can deliver a child to us with these elements in their repertoire, we're going to be able to teach them. We're going to be able to teach them a lot in a short amount of time. But because they were coming underprepared socially, a lot of time was spent having to fill in skill gaps and having to deal with problem behavior that was not allowing the kindergarten to move as quickly as it could have otherwise. So that led to the development, those sources of inspiration led to the development of the Preschool Life Skills curriculum. And here we have the units. It all starts with instruction following. Okay, it's the first unit. The second unit moves into functional communication. The third unit is about tolerance building. And then finally, the icing on the cake is the friendship unit. All right, let's break this down a little bit. So first, in the first unit, what we're going to try to get the students to do, we're going to get instructional control over aspects of their repertoire. Then we're going to teach them to demand for stuff from adults and then from children, to ask for help. And once that rate of manding gets up, of course, now we need to bring it back down to normal levels and teach a little bit of tolerance. So we're going to ask them to wait for the things that they want and ask. But the thing is that nobody waits with nothing to do. So we're going to fill that time with contextually appropriate behavior. We're going to fill that time with uh, social skills that are relevant to being productive in a preschool classroom. And then finally, showing concern for one another is the icing on the top in the friendship unit. The first evaluation of the curriculum was published in 2007. And in fact, this was a unique publication because journal space is at a premium, and they don't give away those pages very easily. But the appendix to this publication included the entire curriculum, and I thought that was quite generous of the journal to be able to provide that kind of space so that this could get out into the public domain and people would be able to pick it up and start using it right away. Now, in that first study, they were looking at problems of commission, problems of omission, and the acquisition of the preschool life skills. The problems of commission fall into the category of, or examples that fall into that category are things like hitting other people, knocking down blocks, destroying materials. They're acts that are being committed. Okay. And by contrast, we also have problems of omission, and those problems are a little bit more benign, but still an issue. It's where the teachers ask the students to do something, but they fail to do those things. Okay. So those are problems of omission. We saw a 79% decrease in problems of commission, a 66% decrease in problems of omission after the kids experienced the curriculum. And there was a fourfold increase in the acquisition of the preschool life skills. So that's pretty powerful, right? But that's only really one data point. It's one study. So we have to be cautiously optimistic about that. The other thing I want to point out is while the outcome is very positive here, that we saw lots of nice reduction in problems and very nice skill acquisition, we also have to ask ourselves, is it socially acceptable? Was the program socially acceptable? Because without those accompanying data, the study would have been incomplete. So, of course, these good researchers made sure to follow the teachings of Mott Wolf, and they got their social validity measures. So let's take a peek at that. When they were evaluating the acceptability of the program, the 8 teachers who evaluated the program were asked the extent to which they agree with 6 close-ended questions regarding the acceptability of PLS. And here are those questions, or here's the scale first. 7 indicates strongly agree, whereas a 1 indicates strongly disagree. And I'm going to just click through all of these because there's not a lot of variability. It's overall very, very strong. Do you see these means? 6.5, 6.9, 6.8, 6.9. Okay. The mean score was strongly agree across all of these questions. And the range was also quite tight. So when taken in combination, not only was the program effective, but the teachers found it quite acceptable, and they would recommend it to other teachers. Now, replicability is believability. So we had one data point, we have one study out there. Now, in 2014, comes the first replication, or the first attempt at replicating. And lo and behold, we now have a second set of data that indicates that the curriculum is quite robust. In this case, problems of commission reduced by 74%, problems of omission reduced by 59, and there was a five-fold increase in the acquisition of the 13 preschool life skills. Okay, so things are looking up. We're getting more data, more validation. So the question was asked, do these skills happen without explicit training? You've probably heard this before, where people will say, oh, don't worry about it. They're going to grow out of it. Oh, don't worry about it. It'll come around. No, 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 no. It's not the passage of time that matters. It's what happens in that time. That's the important variable. So the question, or really yeah, I guess it would be the question from one of my old professors, would say something along these lines. Why wait? Shape it. That's a quote from Jesus Rosales. And I've always appreciated it because it means we're not going to sit around and wait for the skills to happen. We're going to do everything we can to teach those skills. So let's orient these graphs just a little bit. Over here we have them along the x-axis, we have the percentage of trials across the last 3 sessions. And over here we have the target skills, and we have a control group over here and a test group over here. During baseline, these two groups were essentially the same. Okay, they did not show very many of the skills in the curriculum. Okay, so that's what you want. You want to start off looking like that. After the curriculum was implemented, the control group had not acquired any of the skills, not surprisingly, at least to behavior analysts. But the test group did, in fact, acquire the skills, and you could see that by this big gray bar here and all of the circles being out past the criterion mark. Okay. So the implication is clear. These skills do not occur without explicit teaching. Teachers cannot just expect these skills. They must be taught. Equally important were the effects of the effects on problem behavior. So despite occurring to a greater extent in the initial baseline than that observed in the control group, problem behavior was eliminated for all children in the treatment group. In other words, those who acquired the preschool life skills no longer engaged in grabbing, yelling, hitting, rude behavior, and so forth. These same problem behaviors not only maintained for the children in the control group, they increased substantially. So that's another bit of evidence. Let's orient to this graph now. We have mean percentage of trials across the last 3 sessions. Again, we have control group up on top, test group down here. And this time we're looking at the amount of problem behavior. Okay, the black bar indicates the mean for the group. And during baseline, problem behavior for the control group was actually less than in the test group. And that's okay, because it's the test group that's going to be getting the treatment. And what we see during the post test is that the control group actually had a lot more problem behavior. The mean of problem behavior was way higher, and the problem behavior for the test group over here. Did I say test or control? I'm sorry. This is the control group, and the problem behavior got worse for the control group, and it got substantially better for the test group. Okay, in fact, it was eliminated. So these are the data that lead us to conclude that teaching the life skills prevented the development of problem behavior in high-risk preschoolers. The Preschool Life Skills curriculum is intended to be used within an RTI model, a response to intervention model. Okay, and here are some of the publications that go along with it. So as you all know, Tier 1 is instruction for all, Tier 2 is instruction for some, and Tier 3 is instruction for one. So it's intended to be primarily a Tier 1 intervention. Okay, the skills are introduced during an introductory circle time. That would be the Tier 1. They're practiced during center time often. That would be Tier 2, center time, where there's a smaller group. And then occasionally, if you have a student who's been out for a few days and they need a little extra boost, you have booster sessions for Tier 1, where you pull that particular student aside and do a little extra practice with them so that they can catch up with the group. Okay. Just a quick reminder, the Preschool Life Skills have these 4 units, starting with instruction following, functional communication, then tolerance, and then ending with friendship. I want to drive in a little deeper and illuminate what those 13 skills actually are. So in Unit 1, it's responding to name is the first skill, then responding to simple instructions, then following multi-step instructions. That rounds out Unit 1. Unit 2, teaching the functional communication skills, requesting help, requesting attention, requesting stuff from adults, then requesting stuff from peers. We start with the adults before the peers because the adults are a little bit more reliable in delivering the stuff that the kids are requesting. Once manding is up, then we're going to move into tolerance. So tolerating delays imposed by adults at first, and then tolerating delays imposed by peers afterwards. And finally, moving into the friendship skills, putting that nice little grace, that little bit of extra grace on top. So saying thank you when you're given something, acknowledging or complimenting a peer when they come into a play zone, offering and sharing something to a peer when you notice that they're without, and then finally comforting any of your peers when they are in distress. It's a fun curriculum to run. It's meant to be iterative. And by that, what I mean is there's 13 skills. If you're the way this was originally put in place is that we had a skill of the week and we made it through the curriculum in 13 weeks. Okay, so with profiles that are a little bit different, you might take 2 weeks per skill. You might stretch it out a little bit, but the idea is that it's iterative. So once you go through the 13 skills, then you start back over again at the beginning, and you do it again, but this time you add in challenges, more and more challenges. So let me give you an example. The first skill is responding to name. Now, there's this interesting phenomenon that happens around the age 3. Kids seem to lose their hearing. And I don't know exactly why. Actually, I do know why. I'll tell you why. Because their name being called is a signal of a worsening in their life. Think about it. When you're calling the name of a child, it's almost always to get them to depart from what they're currently doing to do something that's a little less fun, sometimes substantially less fun. Lisa, yeah, Dad, turn off the TV. It's time to do your chores. Ooh, that's a worsening, right? So what happens? They develop selective hearing. And so our job here in the beginning for skill number 1 is to flip the script on them and to teach a local history of give them a local history of an upgrade following name calls. Now, the reason why that's important is because there's research that shows much of this research was done by Lauren Bollier. When you call students' name, they stop what they're doing, they look or orient, and then give some indication that they hear you. Yeah, and might say yes. it substantially increases the probability that they're going to be cooperative with instructions that follow. Okay, that's a three-step part. But the research also shows us that if any of those parts, the stop, the look, and the yes, if any of those parts are present, it still increases the likelihood of cooperation with instructions that are going to follow. So that's a good thing. What it also means, what it translates into for iterations, is that you can just start with the stop on the first iteration, and then it might be stop and look on the second iteration, and then it might be stop, look, and say yes on the third iteration. Another example of that would be on a first iteration, when we call a student's name, if we want to stack the deck in our favor, we're going to get down on their level. We're going to be very close to them, and we're going to call their name clearly. All of that increases the probability that they're going to engage in the preschool life skill number one, stop and look and say yes. But how functional is that for us to be right up close in their grill? So on future iterations, what are we going to do? We're going to decrease our proximity. And we're going to keep doing so that we can get that performance to happen when it really matters, like when they're on the playground at a great distance, under distracting conditions, in the midst of some vigorous play. Now, what do you think the ultimate reward is for coming off of the playground after your name is called? Getting the opportunity to go right back out onto the playground. Okay, that's the ultimate one. So at any rate, that's the curriculum in a nutshell. There's much more to it. And I'm just very thrilled that Hi Rasmus has found a way to make the data collection portion be a lot more efficient and capable of summarizing in ways that where it was complicated in the past. And if you're not familiar with the Hi Rasmus platform, there are some other features that are common to other data collection programs, and I hope Dr. Moran is going to talk about that. In particular, what I'm interested in hearing about is the video collection portion, so that you can have your team meetings and have recorded footage of real live action. So thank you, my friends. I hope that was helpful. I'll be around to answer questions at the end.
Well, thank you so much. That was so insightful. I loved kind of learning about the foundation, and really some of those data points and research was pretty remarkable. So can't wait to see it in action on Hi Rasmus now. We have our Director of Curriculum and Training, Dr. Erin Moran, and I'll let you take it over and kind of show off what PLS can look like on our platform.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would also like to add, Tony, as a parent of an almost 3-year-old, can definitely confirm that starting to forget their name and how to respond to it. And while not, formally running PLS with my son right now, obviously I have PLS on my mind, and it has been a nice reminder to myself as a parent, to make sure you're taking the time to, provide nice interactions after their name. And I can't help but think when I give him an instruction and he follows it, I'm like, yeah, PLS 3, there we go. So it's been fun to work on this while also having a preschooler at home. But before I dive into the demo, I want to take a few moments just to thank everyone who has put so much hard work into the PLS, into the platform that really allows us to get to the point where we are today. Obviously, everyone at FTF and anyone who had their involvement over the years with the research and implementation of PLS is such a powerful intervention. Meanwhile, the team at Hi Rasmus has done a fantastic job creating a really user-friendly way to run these sessions. And I feel like I'm in such a privileged position where I get to come in at this point and just put it all together to create what I hope is a very useful package for our users and really assist in the implementation of this protocol. I also want to give a huge shout out to our ambassadors. So we have a nice ambassador program here at Hi Rasmus that some of our users are involved with, and many of them served as the beta testers. So they took our first draft of this, tested it out, met with their teams and really provided us with a tremendous amount of feedback on the program that we then implemented now to show you our final result here. So thank you very much to all those beta testers. We appreciate the feedback, and let's jump in. When you log into your Hi Rasmus account, if you go to the library under our featured programs, this is where you will find not one, but two packages. So we have a package particular for the client curriculum that you can assign to your learner. And then we also have a package for the staff fidelity checks to aid in the staff training. So what we really hope that we're able to assist you to do is to not only collect the data for the learner, but to also help empower you to train your staff in a very meaningful way. So once you click on the Preschool Life Skills curriculum package, you'll be brought to this landing page, has a little bit of info about PLS, also a link to the professional training on the FTF website. They have a very wonderful CEU course. So if you're looking to get more training on the PLS before you implement it, you can find the training there, as well as contact information if you're looking for some coaching and consultation. But all you have to do is click this add to the client, and then this will get exported to that client's program. Now, I already have this loaded up in my client, so we can go ahead and jump to his programs. And I'm going to switch clients here over to, here we go. We'll jump into those programs, and we can see it will get moved there into a PLS folder. And when you click on that folder, it will bring up the 13 different skills. Most of them follow the same format, so we're not going to dive into each program, but we will take a closer look here into PLS 1. So when we log into PLS 1 here, we have responding to their first name as their primary skill. Now, the nice thing about the instructions page is that you have a lot of different options for how to deliver those instructions. On the Professionals tab, this is the tab that would be available to technicians, paraprofessionals, behavior analysts, and we have included in here the information and instructions from the PLS handbook or the manual. So if you're familiar with that manual, you like to reference it as you're implementing the intervention, all of that information is listed here. Has some really great examples of how to introduce the skills, some situations, how to respond if they emit that PLS correctly, and how to respond if it's not emitted correctly. And then some additional activities, special considerations, challenges, whatnot. And once again, another link to that professional training if you get into it and decide that you want to learn more. You also have the option as an organization or an individual to upload instructional videos. So if this is an intervention that you're using commonly in your setting, what you could do as you're training your staff or running it is you could collect videos of your actual learners and your staff implementing it. And if you upload them here, then the technician or a parent, when they open up this program, they could log in and see those real-time or those video instructions here. The targets are set up to follow the tiered approach of this intervention. So we have our tier 1, our class-wide goal, and then we also have the targets set up in tier 2 and tier 3. So if you do implement this intervention with your learner, they're not quite making the progress that you hope to see in tier 1, you can then move to tier 2 and open up that program and kind of track data on that separately. Within each one of these tiered targets, we have sub-targets. So if you are familiar with the handbook and how they have these different programs identified, you can look at the different contexts. So if you're going to be running PLS during circle time or meal time or free play, by having these sub-targets, we're going to allow you to collect data on PLS1, but in these different contexts. The wonderful thing about the platform is that it's customizable. So if you don't have one of these contexts that you're running it in or that you're doing in your setting, you could change these. Or if you wanted to add a context, you could. So if you do arts and crafts, you could just simply add a target here, arts and crafts, and you will have a new target, a new context for that learner to run the program in. We did receive some feedback from some schools saying that when they in their first iteration of PLS, this might be too detailed data collection. So they actually just removed the sub-targets and just ran it as one target. to make it just as simplified as possible. You can modify these targets however makes sense for your learner. If you want to modify the program, like Dr. Cammilleri was mentioning, not having just PLS1 responding to name, but the actual behavior that you're looking to see. So if you want them to stop and look, you could even modify this to say stop and look, to provide maybe a little bit more description to the technician or the paraprofessional who's implementing it. What exactly is that behavior that you're looking for them to emit? And then the small group ones there, those subtargets are set up the same context, which again, you can modify as you go. So that is how the programs, the targets are set up. We will now see a demo of these. I'm not going to save those changes. So we can see here, I have a session that's already in progress. So we're just going to jump back into that session. And one of the features that we have on the program that made me, really excited to put this on is our ability to have a group session. So if you're delivering this in a classroom, you're going to want to be able to collect data on multiple students at the same time. And it can be really cumbersome if you're having to have all these different tabs open and switching through different windows. So the really nice way that you can do this on our platform is by utilizing our group supervision function. So I have my 2 learners here, and I can just very easily switch through them as we're going. So if we're in circle time, let's say we have PLS2, I'm saying, hey, Ryan, he stops, responds, and I say, nice job. Can you sit right there? And then he sits right there. I can really quickly take that data, pop over to Rory. Hey, Rory. He stops and says, hi, great job. Could you hand me that maraca? Maybe he hands me the maraca. So it's as simple as that. You can just toggle through. You could collect data if you're on PLS2, but you still want to collect that data on PLS1. You can still keep that PLS1 open. You could close out the PLS1 and only have PLS2 open. It's up to you of how you want to run those sessions. And then you have the ability with this plus mark here, you can add as many students as you want. There's no limit. So you could theoretically have a full class. You could break it up into different days. But it should make it really quite easy to navigate the data collection portion for these learners. Before I close out of this page and move on and continue showing the different features, I just want to see if anyone has any questions about running that group session. I'll give it a few moments. Also going to highlight that while you're in that session, maybe someone's like, ooh, what is the PLS1? I can't remember. They can quickly hover over here to this instructions button, click this here, and it will bring them back to some of that information. So they can really quickly reference that professional guide or any videos that might be, you might have uploaded for them. Okay, I'm seeing a question here. Do you not start and finish a session for each learner when running as a group? I believe when you finish the group session, it finishes it for the entire group. But perhaps, Amy, if you wanted to maybe double check with that, so I'm not giving out incorrect information. I do think you can add someone at any time, but I do think finishing the session finishes it for the whole group. It's a very good question. Oh, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to return back to the home page. And what I want to do is show you what the data looks like if you're running PLS. So I'm going to go to progress here, as you're very familiar with your progress tab. And so for this learner, I'm going to hunt down our PLS1. So what this graph is showing me right now is their progress on PLS1 with all of the sub-targets combined into one target. So I can see overall, for all contexts, this learner is, kind of hovering around, maybe not making as much progress as perhaps we might want to see. The really nice thing about this view and having those different sub-targets is that you can drill down. So I'm going to go down here. We're still in our tier 1 for this learner. I'm going to drop down, and I can actually click on each sub-target to see his performance on the different sub-targets. So I can see here, oh, circle time, we're doing a great job. I could look at free play. He's also doing a great job here. But then when I click on mealtime, okay, now we're having some problems at mealtime. So this ability to drill down, if you utilize those sub-targets, can really help you to identify, is there a particular context in which the student is struggling? And then this could perhaps guide your decision-making of moving into a tier 2, and providing perhaps a little bit more instruction to him. Maybe if there's other students that struggle during mealtime, provide that small group during the meals. Okay. So this is how it works on the client side. We have one final feature that I think is really nice. If you have utilized the PLS Weekly Wins form before, I think you might be very excited. We know in the data collection, we're really just getting numbers, and it's not maybe reflective of some of the really special moments that can occur during this intervention. Anytime you're working with especially young children, you know, there's some really wonderful moments that happen, and you want to have a way to be able to share that with teachers, other teachers, or parents. So what we have here is this weekly wins that we've set up as a form. So we have a new forms function, and there's instructions on the knowledge base of how to set one of these up. But when you set it up for the learner, you can leave that open up at the top. You don't have to close it out at the end of the day. So you could leave a weekly wins form open for a couple weeks or a month, however long you want to leave it up for. And this can be a nice place where you can collect some of that qualitative data. So you could say week 1, what is something that's special that happened that's not captured in this data? So maybe this learner responded to the name when a peer called it. So we weren't even trying to target that, but they did it, and that's pretty exciting. So you could have week 1, week 2. If you have multiple different special things that happen each week, you can add to it. And if you just save it, it remains up here. You can continue to contribute to this list. And then once you're done, you can hit save, and this will export it to the client's file. You'll have a hard copy that his team and their caregivers can access those weekly ones. So that is the client side. So as I mentioned before, we are not just wanting to create an easy data collection for the client, but we're also wanting to help support staff to run these sessions and to get trained in these skills. So as I mentioned in the library, we actually have a set of staff fidelity checklists. So if your organization has staff profiles, you can click on these fidelity checklists and you can add it to your staff member. Once again, here a little blurb about PLS and another link to the training. But once it appears in your staff member, it will look just like the client. So let me find my staff member here. So if I go to her programs, I can now see that she has a folder with the PLS Life Skills Fidelity Checklists. It didn't pop up there. Here we go. So PLS 1, we can see here a brief description. Again, if you have collected some of those video models, you could put those same video models here so that that staff member has easy access to view them, even if they're not assigned to a client that has one of these programs. So they'll be able to access that at any time. If we look at the targets, FTF very kindly shared their fidelity checklists with us, so we were able to place them on the platform. And we've grouped them into 3 different programs with sub-targets. So we have our 3 different programs are instructions and modeling, rehearsal and feedback, and the data collection with the different various sub-targets below them. Not too many in each one, so it should be quite I think it's a nice amount of being able to really guide clinicians, making sure they're making progress without becoming too overwhelming. The fidelity checklists are the same for the different skills, but we do have a fidelity checklist for PLS 1, PLS 2. So as you're introducing the PLS, week by week into the classrooms, you could also keep up a similar training cadence with your staff and introducing these new fidelity checklists. So I'm going to go ahead and provide a little demo of what that looks like. I'm going to go back here to my client. Switch clients here. Excuse me. We have a lot of switching going on today. So a new very exciting feature that we have is the ability to concurrently supervise a client session as well as a staff session. So what I can see right now, Jill is my staff member, and she is actually running a PLS session with this client right now. So now I have the ability to come in and supervise this session. And so what this means is that if I'm in the client, I can see in real time Jill collecting data on the PLS program. So this is a great way for me to make sure that she is collecting data accurately as she's running those programs. I can also collect notes here as we go. And let's say we're running PLS 1 and the client is maybe not making that progress and I'm in the moment, then I'm deciding that, okay, now's the time that we need to move into a tier 2. I can modify that program right now. I could go into targets and I could open up that tier 1 and I could save it, or tier 2, excuse me. And I can type in here, moved to small group. And if I apply that, that's now going to appear in my notes here, which would export to that session note. So as you're making changes during the client session, it's all going to be recorded and exported for you, which is really nice to save some time. So as I'm viewing the client and their data collection, I can very easily right here just jump over to my staff member. So again, not having to have multiple different tabs open, it's all just in one nice place. I'm switching over and I have PLS 1 up for my staff member here, and I can collect data on them as they're performing this skill. So I can say, you know, they're doing a great job here. They did this one correctly. But maybe they didn't provide 10 opportunities. So then I could say that that was prompted. Or maybe they didn't do something else. So you can very easily collect this data while tabbing through and watching their performance and collecting client and observing their session here. Just like with the clients, you can go to the progress page of your staff members. Let's go over and look at a different person. And I can go into her progress tab and view her progress on Preschool Life Skills, PLS 1, and I can see her graphs and their performance. So again, a nice way if you're wanting to have staff, perhaps their performance reviews, you could pull this into a performance review. This is a nice way that you could sit down and go through perhaps those fidelity checklists and look and say, hey, you're doing a great job on this skill, but you know, this one we've seen some up and down performance. You know, what can we do to make sure that we get this particular step of the intervention, you know, consistent? And as Tony mentioned, we do have the ability to run this live. So that's what we've been looking at right now, is these live sessions where you can use these fidelity checklists in real time, but you do have the ability as well to record a session just like you would on any session for Hi Rasmus. And so the nice thing is that if you did record a sample of that PLS getting run in a classroom, let's say you record, you know, 10 minutes of that circle time, they can upload a video of that in here. And as you view it, you can use those same fidelity checklists to score that skill. So it really gives you the option to run this program both in real time and then asynchronously, depending on your, you know, your setup. It can be hard to make it to a lot of different locations at the same time. You know, sometimes there might be maybe one BCBA for a lot of different schools. So really having the option to supervise in both ways, I think, really gives us a lot of flexibility. Okay, I'm seeing maybe another question in the chat, or no more questions, Amy?
I think it was a duplicate and I put it in the chat. I typed it in there. So thank you so much. That was really cool to see it in action and just see how seamless it can be on the platform for sure. So we will now open it up, whether you have general questions about the preschool life skills, or if you have questions specifically for it on our platform at Hi Rasmus, you can go ahead and type them in the chat, or you can submit them in the Q&A, and we would be happy to help there. So I'm going to share my screen, Erin, if you can just monitor the chat and the Q&A for a second. See if anything comes in. Oops. There we go. Sorry.
Okay, I do see a question here. Do you recommend that everyone move to a 16-week model?
I'm not quite sure where the number 16 came from. There's 13 skills in the curriculum. So if you do a skill a week, that would be, you know, 13 weeks. Oh, okay, yeah, there you go. Uh, so yeah, Juliana, if your classroom is with if it's an inclusive classroom with diversity in the repertoires of the students, you'll likely need more than 13 weeks. However, if this is a typical classroom, typical preschool classroom, then 13 weeks should be fine. But again, remember it's iterative. So after you finish the 13th skill, then you just roll it around to the beginning. It's not that you're going to be done. It's just that you're going to go back and do it again under more challenging conditions. I should also point out that it's meant for those. It's a prevention curriculum. It's not a an intervention for individuals who already have severe problem behavior. If severe problem behavior is in the repertoire, then you're probably talking about needing to do either the balance program or PFA-SBT in particular. But if you're starting to see the beginnings of problem behavior, then yeah, this is a good one for you. Erin, I don't know if we touched upon how to do your baseline and your post tests. Um, there's a questionnaire that goes along with the curriculum that basically presents the evocative situation for each of the 13 skills and then gives you an opportunity to score whether or not they engage in the skill or if they do anything else other than that. That's where the problems of omission and commission get recorded. And you generally will do that at the beginning of the curriculum. You'll do it at the end of the curriculum, end of the first iteration, and so on. So you can end up with several of these data points throughout the year if you continuously run the program.
Yeah, I think that the kind of that survey, taking those questionnaires is a coming soon feature.
Okay. Okay.
Stay tuned. Maybe we'll have a follow-up PLS. We can release some of the newer functions as well.
Good, good, good.
Uh,
Did I miss any other questions in there? Let's see.
I'm seeing some questions related to the functionality of and accessing this. So
Okay.
this is no additional cost to access this program on the platform. It's available for standard and premium. As an enterprise, everyone should be able to access it. Let me share my screen one more time
Yes.
and show you where it lives. So you can, and it's live. It should be up there right now. You
So
can
that's a
go.
complete value add right there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's okay, so if you go to the library, you'll see your normal library features here, and here under featured programs, you'll have, the RBT training, skills-based treatment balance, but now we have these two new ones that have arrived. The PLS Life Skills curriculum, that's the one that you'll click on, and you'll add that to your client. Oh, my window's just a little bit big. Switching screens. So when you click that add to client, that will send it directly to that client's programs.
Hmm.
Um, I'm seeing another question here. Can we reiterate about exporting session notes to the client files? I believe it was related to the weekly wins. So the weekly wins, let me resize my window for 1 second. The weekly wins is a form. And if you're able to hang on in the chat, once we're done, I can provide some links to the knowledge base of where you can find some videos that walk you through setting up the forms. But what I have done for the learners for the weekly wins is to set it up as a form and just let the form, I don't assign it to anyone. I just leave the form up and running on the client's page. And that's where you're able to add to it week over week. Let me share my screen one more time. Here we go. So this weekly wins, again, set up as a form. I'll throw the link in the chat, and all you do is hit resume. I can add to it. As long as I just hit this minimize, save as draft, it will stay there. And so then I can go back and add it. It's when you hit save session note, it really shouldn't say session note, it should say form. But when you hit that, that is what would send it then to the client's file. So now you can see it has disappeared from the home page. And if I go into the files, that's when you can see, all the previous PLS weekly wins that I have played around with.
Mm-hmm.
So the fidelity checklists, you can access those if your organization has staff profiles. So the staff profiles, that would be an additional cost to have that functionality, but once you have it, the fidelity ones would be, you would just go into the library and access that. If you have more questions about the staff profiles, please send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, Erin at Hi Rasmus. I have been working quite diligently on getting those staff profiles into a place where we're really proud of how they're working, and hope that you can take advantage of them. Some more. What other questions do we have here? I know how to supervise a student session. Do you then just click on the staff's name to pull their name into the supervised session? I'll drop another link in the chat to the knowledge base that shows you how to set up that staff session. But in order to concurrently supervise a client and a staff member, that staff has to have a profile and they need to have a session set up. So they would need to have one session set up. So you would pull the staff sessions into a folder for them by accessing it through the library, put those into a session. And once they have like a PLS training session, when you begin the supervised, then you'll have the option to add that staff member in. But again, I'll drop the links for the forms and for the concurrent supervision. Yes, so I'm seeing the comment here about digging into forms. It looks like it's a great solution for a daily log to capture qualitative goodness we want to share. I honestly had never thought to use the forms like this until we dug into the PLS, and Dr. Cammilleri was like, hey, we have this weekly wins. How can we try to get this on the platform? And that's when we came up with the idea of utilizing forms to kind of capture that information. So a really great kind of added bonus. So yeah, you could use this. It doesn't just have to be for PLS. It could be weekly wins or any other things. And you could do it for a staff or a client too. So if you're wanting to collect some nice qualitative information about a staff, you can go ahead and use it in the same way.
Awesome. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. If you want to learn more, you can check out our website and book a demo to see how our platform can help you. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much for joining us to learn and grow together. Hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.